Hello everyone, welcome to back my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before starting the video, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. On Wednesday's episode of Live with Kelly and Mark, Ripa shared the heartbreaking news of her beloved dog Chewy's passing. The 17-year-old Shih Tzu, who had been a steadfast presence in the lives of Ripa and her husband, Mark Consuelos, was euthanized in their New York City apartment after suffering from health issues. Kelly, Ripa and Mark Consuelos share tragic loss. On Live morning talk show took a poignant turn as Mark Consuelos opened the episode, recounting the emotional goodbye they bid to Chewy the day before. With a visible mix of sadness and resolve, Consuelos explained how the couple faced the heartbreaking decision due to Chewy's declining health, marked by loss of appetite, dehydration, and neurological problems. "It's probably one of the toughest things that we've had to do as a married couple," Consuelos shared. He acknowledged that only fellow pet parents could truly comprehend the depth of such grief. Ripa, visibly emotional, fought back tears as she recalled the life and times they shared with Chewy. They welcomed the dog into their home after Live featured her in an adoption segment, making her an integral part of both their family and the show. The couple's children grew up alongside Chewy, and the pup remained a constant presence even as their kids left for college. Ripa also shared a tender memory from the night of Chewy's death, revealing that she finally had the chance to kiss Chewy's face, something the dog had always been particular about. In her sorrow, Ripa found solace in this intimate farewell. "I know that she was like somewhere in dog heaven, pissed off," Ripa quipped, "but I didn't care because it just was so nice to have that." Meanwhile, Consuelos comforted his wife, acknowledging her as a great dog mom and assuring her that they would get through this difficult time together. The couple are still pet parents to another dog, Lena, a Maltese Shih Tzu mixed whom Ripa adopted in 2020. Jeff Bezos' mother, Jacqueline Guys Bezos, dies at 78. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos' mother, Jacqueline Guys Bezos, has died, he announced on Instagram. She was 78. Guys Bezos, who had Lewy body dementia, died in her Miami home Thursday, according to the Bezos Scholars Program, a foundation she started with her husband, Mike Bezos. After a long fight with Lewy body dementia, she passed away today, surrounded by so many of us who loved her, her kids, grandkids, and my dad. Bezos, her eldest son, wrote in an Instagram post Thursday, "I know she felt our love in those final moments." Lewy body dementia is a type of dementia in which protein bodies called Lewy bodies develop in the brain's nerve cells, impacting the regions involved in movement, memory, and thinking. According to the Mayo Clinic, Lewy body dementia causes a decline in mental abilities that gradually gets worse over time. The Mayo Clinic said, "People with LBD might see things that aren't there, known as visual hallucinations. They also may have changes in alertness and attention." Other symptoms of LBD include slowed movement, confusion, depression, and memory loss. According to the Mayo Clinic, it is the second most common type of the dementia after Alzheimer's disease. Guys Bezos was born in Washington, D.C., and eventually moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico, with her family, according to the Bezos Scholars Program. She had Jeff, her first child, when she was in high school at the age of 17. As a young, single mom, Jackie was relentless, taking night school classes, following high school, and working in a bank by day. The foundation said in its announcement of her death, her shift overlapped with a young Cuban immigrant who worked the night shift named Miguel Mike Bezos. The two fell in love and were married on April 5, 1968, in what would be the beginning of a deep lifelong partnership across every aspect of their lives. The couple had 2 children together, Christina and Mark. And Guys Bezos dedicated her life to her family and poured her heart into raising her children with compassion, patience, and wisdom, the foundation said. In his statement on her death, Bezos highlighted that his mother's adulthood started early because she had him young. "That couldn't have been easy. But she made it all work," Bezos wrote. "She pounced on the job of loving me with ferocity, brought my amazing dad onto the team a few years later, and then added my sister and brother to her list of people to love, guard, and nourish. For the rest of her life, that list of people to love never stopped growing. She always gave so much more than she ever asked for." But Guys Bezos was also dedicated to education. At the age of 45 in 1991, she went back to school and earned a Bachelor of Arts degree from St. Elizabeth University in New Jersey. Returning to college as an adult and pursuing her own education was just another example of Jackie's determination and grace, the foundation said. Her commitment to personal growth was an inspiration to all who knew her and a powerful reminder that it's never too late to follow your dreams. In 2000, Guys Bezos founded the Bezos Family Foundation with her husband, children, and their families. And in 2005, they founded the Bezos Scholars Program, helping to offer leadership development programs to outstanding students from the United States to Africa. Per their website, Guys Bezos' death comes just shy of 2 months after her billionaire son married Lauren Sanchez in Italy. The lavish events celebrating the couple were attended by media mogul Oprah Winfrey, Queen Rania of Jordan, President Donald Trump's daughter Ivanka Trump, and many other VIPs. We were all so lucky to be in her life. Bezos wrote about his mother. I hold her safe in my heart forever. I love you, Mom. What do Putin and Trump each want from the Alaska summit? US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin will travel to Friday's summit in the U.S. state of Alaska, with contrasting priorities as they prepare for talks on ending Russia's war in Ukraine. Putin has been consistent on his desire to win Ukrainian territory, while Trump has made no secret of his desire to act as a global peacemaker. But both men may also sense other opportunities, such as diplomatic rehabilitation on the world stage on the part of Putin. Second-guessing Trump's aims is harder, as he has recently made vacillating statements about his Russian counterpart. Here's a fuller look at what the two leaders might want from the meeting. Putin eyes international recognition, and more by Russia editor Steve Rosenberg. The first thing Putin wants from this summit is something he's already been given, and that's recognition. Recognition from the world's most powerful country, America, that Western efforts to isolate the Kremlin leader have failed. The fact that this high-level meeting is happening is testament to that, as is the joint press conference that the Kremlin has announced. The Kremlin can argue that Russia is back at the top table of global politics. So much for being isolated, crowed the tabloid Moskovsky Komsomolets earlier this week. Not only has Putin secured a US-Russia summit, but a prime location for it, Alaska has much to offer the Kremlin. First, security. At its closest point, mainland Alaska is just 90 kilometers, 55 miles, from Russia's Chukotka. Vladimir Putin can get there without flying over hostile nations. Second, it's a long way, a very long way from Ukraine and Europe. That sits well with the Kremlin's determination to sideline Kyiv and EU leaders and deal directly with America. There's historical symbolism, too. The fact that Tsarist Russia sold Alaska to America in the 19th century is being used by Moscow to justify its attempt to change borders by force in the 21st century. Alaska is a clear example that state borders can change, and that large territories can switch ownership, wrote Moskovsky Komsomolets. But Putin wants more than just international recognition and symbols. He wants victory. He's been insisting that Russia keep all the land it has seized and occupied in 4 Ukrainian regions, Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson, and that Kyiv withdraw from the parts of those regions still under Ukrainian control. For Ukraine, this is unacceptable. Ukrainians will not give their land to the occupier, says the country's President Volodymyr Zelensky. The Kremlin knows that. But if it secures Trump's support for its territorial demands, the calculation may be that rejection by Ukraine would result in Trump cutting all support for Kyiv. Meanwhile, Russia and the US would get on with boosting relations and developing economic cooperation. But there is another scenario. Russia's economy is under pressure. The budget deficit is rising. Income from oil and gas exports falling. If economic problems are pushing Putin to end the war, the Kremlin may compromise. For now, there's no sign of that, with Russian officials continuing to insist that Russia holds the initiative on the battlefield. Trump famously promised during his 2024 presidential campaign that ending the Ukraine war would be easy, and that he could do it in a matter of days. That promise has hung over the American president's efforts to resolve the conflict, as he has alternated between frustration with the Ukrainians and the Russians. Since returning to the White House in January, he harangued Zelensky at a dramatic White House meeting in February, and later temporarily suspended military aid and intelligence sharing with the war-torn nation. In recent months, he's been more critical of Putin's intransigence and willingness to attack civilian targets, setting a series of deadlines for new sanctions on the Russians and other nations that do business with them. Last Friday was the most recent deadline, and as with all the before it, Trump ultimately backed away. Now he's hosting the Russian president on American soil and talking about land swapping, which Ukraine fears may consist of land concessions in exchange for peace. So, any discussion about what Trump wants during his Friday talks with Putin is muddied by the president's vacillating statements and actions. This week, Trump has made a concerted effort to lower the expectations for this meeting, perhaps a tacit acknowledgement of the limited possibilities of a breakthrough with only one party in the war present. On Monday, he said the summit would be a meeting. He suggested that he would know if he could reach a deal with the Russian leader probably in the first 2 minutes. "I may leave and say good luck. And that'll be the end," he added. "I may say this is not going to be settled." On Tuesday, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt reinforced this message, calling the summit a listening session, but by midweek, he was once again talking up the prospects of a deal, saying that he thinks both Zelensky and Putin want peace. With Trump, it's often best to expect the unexpected, and Zelensky and European leaders spoke to him on Wednesday in an effort to ensure that he doesn't strike a deal with Putin that Ukraine won't or can't accept. One thing has been clear practically all year. However, Trump would welcome the chance to be the man who ends the war in his inaugural address. He said he wanted his proudest legacy to be that of a peacemaker. It is no secret that he longs for the international recognition of a Nobel Peace Prize. In the Oval Office on Thursday, Trump boasted of all the global conflicts he feels he has successfully resolved since taking office in January. But when asked about the war in Ukraine, he offered a rare acknowledgement of the challenge he now faces. "I thought the easiest one would be this one," he said. "It's actually the most difficult." Trump is not one to get bogged down in details, but if there is an opportunity for him to claim that he has made progress toward peace during the talks in Anchorage, he will take it. Putin, always a savvy negotiator, may seek a way to let Trump do just that on Russia's terms. Of course, what a Russia-Ukraine ceasefire deal could mean for global markets. Salo and Reuters. World markets are watching closely as U.S. President Donald Trump and Russia's Vladimir Putin meet in Alaska later on Friday to seal a possible ceasefire agreement in Ukraine. This is a conflict that sparked an energy shock, sent food prices soaring, battered European assets and cut Russia's economy off from much of the Western world. Details and the longevity of any agreement will be key. And for now, investors are on standby. Ukraine's government bonds, key indicators of the mood, in recent days have largely stalled at a still distressed 55 cents on the dollar. The big issue will be, of course, that even if we get a ceasefire, how sustainable is that, said Zurich Insurance Group's chief markets strategist, Guy Miller. Here is a summary of how Europe's biggest conflict since World War II has shaped markets and what impact a ceasefire agreement could have. 1. Europe hyperturb's reliance on cheap Russian gas meant its economy and stock market were ill-equipped to handle surging energy prices. And Germany's economy, Europe's industrial powerhouse, stagnated. Stocks were broadly punished, with sectors reliant on low energy prices, such as industrials and chemicals, notably hit. European banks also took a drubbing, but have since recovered as those exposed to Russia cut ties. It has not been all doom and gloom, and the European stocks 600 index is not far off March's record high. Aerospace and defense stocks have had a supercharged rally since February 2022, with gains ranging from over 600% for Leonardo to over 1,500% for Ripa. If the fighting stops in Ukraine, I'd expect defense stocks to come off a little bit, but I think the fundamental reason why defense stocks have rallied is still there, said Tony Meadows, CEO, at Bree Wealth Management. If Putin is still there, and Trump is still there, then the need for Europe to spend on defense is still there. 2. HITW, the invasion triggered a surge in European energy prices. Brent crude rose as much as 30% to $139 a barrel, while natural gas prices soared nearly 300% to record highs. Crude subsided in the following months, but Dutch TTF futures, the regional benchmark for natural gas, soared as Europe scrambled for an alternative to the Russian gas that fed over 40% of total demand. Europe has since become increasingly reliant on U.S. superchilled liquefied natural gas. The European Union has committed to boosting its purchases of U.S. crude, gas and coal from around $75 billion in 2024 to $250 billion per year to 2027. Under a new U.S. trade deal, a figure most experts say is unrealistic. Oil and gas prices are below 2022 peaks, but they are higher than 5 years ago, up 50% and 300%, respectively. Following the COVID-19 pandemic, the war ensured the inflation genie was well out of its bottle as energy and food prices soared while agricultural exports from Russia and Ukraine, two leading grain exporters, were disrupted. Central banks backtracked on the notion that an inflation spike was transitory and aggressive interest rate hikes followed. Since late 2022, inflation and rates have come down in big economies and focus shifted to U.S. tariffs. High food prices remain a concern, especially for developing economies. World food commodity prices rose in July to their highest in over 2 years, according to the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. If Ukraine could operate normally as an economy, that would help food prices around the world, said April LaRuse, head of investment specialists at insightInvestment.Ford/Ukraine. RUSACI Ukraine's economy was battered by the war. The country was forced to restructure $20 billion of its government debt last year, as it could no longer afford the repayments given the demands of the conflict. Its bonds then rallied on hopes that a re-elected Trump would broker a peace deal, but plunged following increasingly ugly exchanges between Trump and Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky that culminated in February's infamous Oval Office meeting. The bonds recovered some ground again this week. Russia's economy also contracted after the West introduced sweeping sanctions, but soaring defense spending led to a rebound in 2023 and 2024. After jacking up rates to combat the subsequent inflation spike, though, some Russian officials now warn of recession risks. Russia's ruble sank to a record low soon after the invasion, but rebounded to 7-year highs later in 2022 as imports dried up. It is up nearly 40% against the dollar this year. Russia and China meanwhile now do more of their trade in the yuan, which has overtaken the dollar as Russia's most traded foreign currency. 5 currencies up beyond it. The war hit the euro, which fell almost 6% against the dollar in 2022. As the economic impact was felt, analysts say any improving sentiment created by a ceasefire could help the euro, but note that other factors, such as monetary policy, were also key. The euro might benefit, but we wouldn't see this as a game changer for the currency, said Frederick Carrier, head of investment strategy for RBC Wealth Management in the British Isles and Asia. While safe havens such as the dollar and Swiss franc benefited, the conflict shaped currencies in other ways. Analysts say the use of sanctions against Russia and a decision by the West to freeze some $300 billion of Russian state assets in 2022 has accelerated de-dollarization. In short, efforts by countries to decrease reliance on the dollar. Reporting by Amanda Cooper, Mark Jones, Dara Ranasinghe, Samuel Indick. Additional reporting by Alexander Moreau. Compiled by Dara Ranasinghe. Editing by Tomasz Janowski.